Eliza Rose Watson, who's an especially beautiful woman, I do have to say, very, very attractive indeed, put up a big billboard of her in a white bar, smiling, looking with $1,000 smile, looking the biz. But nothing too raunchy, nothing more than the Hello Boys, probably less than the Hello Boys Wonder Bar poster of the 90s or noughties, whenever it was. But it just happens to have her link to her OnlyFans page, her username, and then to her Instagram account, and then the OnlyFans sign. And lots of people reported this to the Advertising Standards Authority, saying it was promoting sexual adult content. Others said, well, it isn't that bad, to be honest. She's fairly decently dressed and she's got every right to stick it up there. And apparently, essentially, she's allowed to.
Well, the thing is, it's true, lingerie ads often show someone's breasts. But this is advertising OnlyFans. I mean, this is openly advertising pornography. And I just don't like the way this is becoming normalised now, where people are having billboards with their OnlyFans that anyone can see. Girls are seeing this and thinking, oh, totally legitimate. Let me just go be an OnlyFans model instead of, I don't know, going to university and expanding my mind. And is this the way young boys are going to start seeing women now?
Right, so, I mean, people would argue saying, well, look, it's not user-generated, well, it is user-generated pornography, but it's not the same as these sort of big porn sites, the MindGeek-operated ones, which have been slammed repeatedly for trafficking, for abuse, for all sorts of dodgy videos. It's where people can sell their wares and other people will buy them. And frankly, call girls have been putting their business cards in phone boxes for a long time. It's just a digitised version.
I just feel like this is just becoming legitimized, though. I just think there's this whole pornification now of society going on, and I think OnlyFans plays a big part in it. I mean, apparently she used to be a teacher, and then she decided she was going to go onto OnlyFans and make loads of money, although, from what I've heard, only a very, very tiny percentage of people make any money off OnlyFans. So if people actually think they can go on this and quit their day job, don't even try. Most people make nothing, and then they end up with loads of pictures of themselves naked on the internet that they have no control over, which can damage their job prospects down the line, damage relationships.
Bob from accounts at the water cooler spreading it around what you've been up to on your Friday night. But no, I agree with you on this. There is this normalisation of sort of coarsened views of sex and sexuality and adult content where nothing is mysterious anymore. We don't talk about the family unit. We don't talk about the love, of monogamy and building a partnership and a couple. Everything's so objectified when it comes to pop music. When you look at some of the adverts on billboards around the London Underground, and Sadiq Khan famously banned a bikini poster, and yet half the other things. I mean, one of my most irrational fears in life is boohoo man. I mean, he looks like he would attack you in the night. But moving on to the next story, and I think another indicator of the way in which society has gone without checks and balances is this whole Andrew Tate thing.
Oh my gosh.
This guy for a long time, everyone said, isn't he great? Isn't he great for men's mental health and making men feel good about themselves? And I remember saying from the beginning, really? No. This guy, the pickup artist, this geezer who's really you would want him advising your son, you want your son listening to his content. Well, now it seems to be coming out increasingly. He is on trial, of course, in Romania, but the BBC have gotten hold of some messages that a part of the case file against him, where his brother is saying that he will treat these women, he'll slave these beep. And yeah, I mean, some of the material they've gotten hold of does seem to add up to the fact that he was involved in pretty awful, brutal, abusive, coercive behaviour at the very least.
We only need to listen to him for 5 minutes to see that this guy holds deeply misogynistic views. I mean, these aren't just sexist views, these are deeply misogynistic views. And everything that's alleged, I mean, it's unsurprising. Because, I mean, if this is what he just talks about in public, imagine what happens behind closed doors. I mean, that's when it all really comes out. And I think that most of the debate around Andrew Tate is sort of centred around free speech. But I think his ideas need to be scrutinised. Like what this guy says absolutely disgraceful things that need to be challenged.
Yeah, no, I think he's utterly appalling. But are these first two stories, on some respects, two sides of the same coin, perhaps? Because on one hand, we've got a woman basically saying, I'm selling sex online. You can pay a lot of money to come and see me do whatever it is she does for the cameras. And then on the other hand, a guy saying, look at women, they're brainless bimbos, they should be enslaved, they're, can be objectified and used for their bodies, and treat them as you want because, frankly, look at the way they're treating themselves.
I think that's such a good point. I feel like we live in very confused confused times, and I feel very sorry for teenagers nowadays because I think they get very mixed signals. There's sort of this puritanism around relationships and young boys approaching young girls. But then at the same time, there's this like extreme libertinism, you know, posting naked pictures of yourself online. And it doesn't feel like there's any sensible there's no sensible middle ground, or nothing seems to be like when we were kids where it was just kind of obvious. Nowadays, you can really have huge extremes. And I think it must be so hard to decide where you fit in along the spectrum.
I mean, it does seem to me there's been a huge uptick in extreme sexualisation across the spectrum. I blame a lot of this on the advent of digital pornography, because when I was a kid growing up, you know, you had the old adult magazine, didn't you? Top shelf of a newsagent, opaque cover. You'd have to put on a particularly deep voice if you're a sixth form boy trying to get hold of one of those, or nick one of your parents' copies. But even then, when someone got their hands on adult material, you're probably already in your teens, and it sort of circulated a dog-eared copy of something, and it was still photography that looks like the joy of sex rather than the sort of really explicit stuff that anybody can watch now.
No, they see hardcore stuff from younger and younger ages. I remember someone saying to me that young boys all gather around phones watching hardcore material, and I was like, why? Why would kids that age even want to look at it? But they are, and they can. And I think much stricter controls need to be put on things like Pornhub. I don't think young children should be looking at that stuff. I don't know what it's doing to their idea of what sex is and what relationships are.
Well, we've been waiting a very long time for the online safety bill, haven't we, dear government? It seems to have been years in the making, and this was supposed to be the sort of world-leading legislation that was going to beat everyone else to the punch. Well, even the EU have got theirs by now. Apparently France and Germany are going to ban Pornhub, and what are we doing about it? Nothing.